Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. This is season number 10. It's brought to you by OpenTable. OpenTable is a global leader in restaurant tech, helping more than 60,000 restaurants worldwide fill 1.7 billion seats a year. OpenTable's world-class technology empowers restaurants to focus on what matters most: your team, your guests, and your bottom line, while enabling diners to discover and book the perfect restaurant for every occasion. With best-in-class table management software and valuable 24/7, 365 in-person support for restaurants, why not schedule a demo today? Visit opentable.co.uk/restaurant-solutions to get started. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast, and today we're in a slightly weird environment. We're in the theatre. I've taken these two to the theatre, and we're the only ones here. So who are we? Let's start with you in the middle. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, my name is Tommy. I'm the head of restaurant systems at Honest Burgers.
Oh, you've updated your title, very posh. Nice to see you again, Tommy. Tommy, you were on a while ago, weren't you? We had fun, so I thought I'd bring you back with the AI genius that is Matt Grimshaw. Matt, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm the founder of Youda.
Youda, and you better tell us about Youda before we get into anything else.
We're doing AI for employee experience. So how you can use AI to get rid of all the admin stuff that no one wants to do and create better personalized experiences for people. And the data that enables you to predict people's behavior and understand the causal relationships in your business. That was a terrible explanation, wasn't it?
I mean,
that was so boring.
No, it was good. It was good. And going back to you, because you actually run a restaurant compared to us two. I had a go at running them for about 20 years. Didn't do very well. Tell us some of the big barriers you're facing just generally at the moment in terms of I suppose not just technology but just day-to-day operational challenges. What are your guys facing, particularly on the employee side?
On the employee side, it's probably more around managing the amount of communications we're sending to the employees, trying not to overwhelm them with new projects or anything new that we're trying to launch on our marketing side or on the people side or on the food side, making sure that it lands and trying to get them to still focus on cooking food and serving customers, which can be challenging.
And it's interesting, we've just come today, there's been a full panel going on in here, a full event, here all day today. And we were listening to, I think Will Beckett was just talking from Hawksmoor there about exactly that actually the essence of what we do is hospitality. And sometimes now that's becoming less important. It's kind of, you have to be able to run a business as well as just run that side of it. And Matt, AI and automation is kind of going to pop up a lot in this conversation now. Why did you build Youda? Because what was the point of coming to this point? Because obviously Tommy's got his challenges. He just explained there that he's facing. What brought Youda to market?
I just like to make people happy at work. That's really what it's about. In that context, I don't think people teams have currently got the tech they need to be able to create the sort of experiences that would make people happy at work. So sort of build on Tommy's point at the moment, most hospitality businesses, certainly once you get of big scale, really struggle to segment the employee experience. So you either end up communicating everything to everyone or nothing to no one. So there's not the tech to personalize the experience. There's not the tech to be able to predict what people are going to need and when they need it. And then from a people team's perspective, the big problem, in my opinion, is people directors that are in the same position marketing directors were in 1990. Like in 1990, you're a marketing director, you know you're wasting half your ad budget. The problem is you don't know which half. And then Google Ads comes along and you can evidence the relationship between the ad and the outcome, and suddenly the digital advertising budgets come from like nothing in the year 2000 to about 65 billion or something crazy this year. Yeah, and in the people space, we've still got the same problem, which is there's no way of evidencing causation. There's no way of evidencing a causal relationship between a way of managing your people or something you do, like provision you give to your people or investment in your people, and a business outcome. And so the really big problem we're trying to wrestle with is how do you give people teams the data so they understand what works for whom, when, and why.
And it comes back into your role because you're obviously looking at a lot of technology, finishing your rollout.
Best job in the world.
Yeah, I look like you enjoy it. And you're just finishing out the rollout with Vita, aren't you? Vita Mojo across, which is an EPOS provider, across your everybody, or is it the whole chain taking Vita?
All 39 restaurants, yes.
And have you finished, or are you still on that?
Finished.
Are you finished? Oh,
yeah.
I thought you looked more relaxed today than usual.
I'm not relaxed at all.
It's the other bit now.
It's the makeup.
Yeah. And so on that, so when you're looking at buying products or looking at products like what Matt's about to pitch to you in Youda, but it's super interesting, isn't it? Because what process do you have to go through? Because till we get onto what actually we can do with a product like that and AI generally in a business, what process do you have to go through to find the right product?
Spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. It's been, talking to a lot of peers in the industry helps. And no, often it's mostly through networking and connections, and obviously I get 100 cold emails every single day, which I barely read, so don't bother. Yeah. No. And now, I mean, so often it's through networking. So some of the very good platform we recently found was actually through you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And through you listening to podcasts and seeing people talking about their products. Obviously, with Youda, we have an existing relationship. Dub, who's part of Youda, and obviously yourself, Matt, who worked at the Pioneers, have been working closely with Honest Burgers and helping us manage our people better. So there's a natural interest in what they're up to and what they're doing with AI.
It's very interesting. Go on.
I was just going to say, like Tommy probably being a bit humble, I think one of the things that makes Tommy particularly effective at what he's doing is he comes from an operations background. Like he actually understands the business. And I think, you were start this podcast with like, we're in hospitality, we're not really in tech. And I think if you've got that grounding of like understanding the business and understanding the business problem, because otherwise you go out shopping for tech, you can like spend a lot of money very, very quickly and have no impact on your business whatsoever.
And it's super interesting then when you get down into AI and causation, as Matt talks about, is the use cases within your business, for instance, because you're probably using AI. Do people get confused, Matt? Sorry, first between AI and automation. Are they the same?
They're not the same thing. I think people get confused generally with AI. Like AI isn't one thing. So there are lots of instances of AI, and AI has been around for ages. Like you're almost certainly already using AI in your business, particularly if you've got like predictive rotors, those sorts of things. What's new is the stuff with large language models that's come through in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, which is opening up, if you like, a different way of automating things and a much broader scope of the types of things you can automate.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And in your business then, so I presume in your EPOS product you're using some form of AI. I don't know if you know that, do you?
If they do it, they don't make it very public.
That's the whole point, it's quiet. But when it comes to people, we talked before about messaging communications, but it's down to well-being, kind of the way, kind of sharing schedules. So I've been working, obviously everyone knows that Shay now works for Pizza Pilgrims. I don't know, bore you everyone. But they have this thing called Joshua, right? Which is kind of along the lines of what we're talking about here, I think, where Shay's able to get, like, so very good example. On Saturday, Shay was out with us. He'd been out for his first night out on Friday night, went to a party, got drunk. First time ever, so it's a bit of a moment in our house. So I picked him up at midnight, and he got in the car and went, Dad, I'm battered. So it was his first time. This has got a point, don't worry. So the next day, we're in the car driving along, and Joshua comes up with a message, which is Pizza Pilgrim's communications tool, and says, oh, someone needs to pick up a shift Saturday night. Can you do it? And Shay just sat there deliberating in the passenger seat going, oh, God, I'm dying. But ended up taking that shift, right? Because they then showed how many, they shared out how many shifts have been taken by different people that last few weeks. And it really opened up his eyes to like, I haven't picked one up for a while. So he did. I thought that was fantastic. Do you see use cases like that in Honest where you can plug in or you carry on?
Oh, 100%. I'm actually in the midst of talking AI with with Youda, but also with some other providers. We are in the process of replacing Workplace by Meta because they're just shutting down. So and AI is a big part of the next product I want to bring to Honest. The goal is to get rid of all the small admin tasks that no one wants to do and that can be automated.
From where? From not just HR, across the board?
No, across the board.
Oh, wow.
So at site level, anything that can be automated, such as, I don't know, forecasting or deployment of your people, or analyzing your sales, or analyzing your stock count, or automating your stock count. I think you posted on that recently, which is also, no one likes to stock take, right? If it can be automated, that's brilliant. But then from an operational point of view, being able to draw in a lot of data sources and get some insight out of it without having to spend hours and hours looking at data and try to correlate them together, highlighting anomalies around operations, around scheduling, people being overtired and things like that. There's so much that can be done. And then from a central support point of view, my goal is to try to automate all the little things that our central people team are doing that don't actually bring much to the table, but needs to be done. So our people get served quickly on the spot, get answers straight away, without having to wait for someone to actually be available and pick up the conversation.
Yeah,
There's so much we can do.
and I think, and let's talk about some real tangible, because I had a go on Youda. Is that fair to play? When the last time I had a play with it, is that still very accurate of what it might do? So talk us through what a journey might look like. Let's talk about onboarding an employee, for instance, because onboarding is probably one of the most clunky, especially for the kids now who are entering the industry. And I think someone just talked about retention on stage today here with OpenTable, and they were talking about different reasons why people might leave the business. Talk us through onboarding and what impact you could have around there in terms of the benefits.
So I think Tommy's point is the first one. Like, start by giving people time back, like making the process easy, automating all the compliance stuff you have to do, the admin stuff you have to do, but like no one wants to do. Managers are currently spending a lot of time sat in an office pushing data around the business. So you now with AI, you can firstly, I think you can manage multiple channels coming through from your recruitment process. So you can have
from your ATS, from your
So my experience is most businesses will actually have more than one recruitment channel, and the candidates, depending on which channel they've come from, will show up with different data. Does that make sense? Like, if you've gone through an ATS, you probably have done your right to work check on the ATS, but maybe if you're a walk-in and you've done a QR code, you haven't done your right to work check, or simple example. So you can set the automation up so it responds to what you've already got. The first rule is you never want someone to put the same data in twice, right? Because that's complete. So you can read what's missing, if you like, on the checklist of things you have to get done and pick up those actions. And then you can do everything from contracts, right to work checks, bank details, tax declaration, all those.
All in one flow.
Or could be all in one throw, or you can split it up. Like, I think the interesting thing is what's the user's appetite for doing this stuff and when. And then the key bit for me is you can then personalize the onboarding experience to respond to the different needs of different people. So simple example, perhaps, maybe you're employing someone who's experienced in hospitality and someone else who's first time working in the industry. For the person who's more experienced in hospitality, you might decide, actually, for the compliance stuff, let's just send them the quiz and get them to do that. And then we'll just train them on the stuff they get wrong. Whereas for someone who's not worked in the industry before, we might need to put them through the whole process. It's simple things like that actually, if you've been through those 3 hours of like doing all the videos and then the test, and it's like that actually makes a big difference. And it gives a lot of time back to the business.
And handbooks, yeah?
How you can put...
How long's your handbook? Have you got a physical handbook?
Oh no, we I think
I'm probably not asking the right company, am I?
No, we used to make T-shirts with a handbook, and it used to be on the sleeve. I think we had like 10 points only. We tried to make it as short as possible.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'm asking the wrong
so you're asking the wrong question.
No, but I came from other
It was a
companies
Phil
like that.
Eels one, wasn't it? Like, the rule number one was like, don't be a dick.
Yeah, well, this is the best rule.
It still is.
How are you? Anyway.
But yeah, you can put like all that FAQ stuff you can put through a bot. You can also put think about the feedback you want to get from people. You know, like at the end of your first day when someone clocks out, you can have a quick message like, how was your first day? And you can have...
What interface are they using here? So how am I receiving this? Or
Well, if you're a Youda person, you'll be on a Youda app.
Right.
There are other comms platforms out there. Not all of them have an API for chat. So
right.
I think the sort of subtext of all of this for me and to the picture Tommy's presented is, really, if you want to utilize AI to do really interesting stuff, it's about having a coherent stack, not just one product that will solve that problem for you.
Yeah, you've got to get everything plugged into it, right? To really, otherwise you're going to kind of fix 10%, and then you're going to be, I was just talking about this downstairs, you're going to want more. It's going to leave you wanting more in it if you haven't got your whole stack involved.
Yeah, and I think if you think about where the opportunity is in terms of like the automations opportunity, is usually the stuff that falls between the gaps of existing systems. Does that make sense? Because the system itself would otherwise take care of it. So unless you can get those systems to talk to each other, you can't eliminate that manual work. And similarly, from the data perspective, the interesting stuff on the data is the insight you get when you combine very, very large data sets. And you can't do that if you've got siloed data and you can't pull your rota data, or you can't pull your sales data or your customer feedback data. So really, like, it's less about one particular product being like, you know, a magic wand that will get suddenly created. That's actually the easy bit. The harder bit is, have you got a stack that product can fit into and draw upon? What I think is wonderful about Pizza Pilgrims is they've got that stack that allows them to pull that data and to create those experiences.
And have they built around that then? How have they done that? Have they kind of they're working backwards almost. That they're kind of saying, okay, right, all our products. Forget Joshua for a minute. All our products are integrated, so we have got a data flow that works. Now we can layer AI on top.
Tommy, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them because I don't know. Tommy might know better than me. I suspect, looking from the outside, their strategy has been go for best-in-class application in each in the space. Now, if you aspire to be a best-in-class application, you will almost certainly have to have a good API because your product only stands up if it can fit in. Where you get locked in, if you like, is the more like one-size-fits-all platforms that try and cover a much broader sweep of stuff. Actually, some of those curtail their integration capabilities as a way of holding on to customers.
Because I'll ask your opinion on this. I don't know whether you want to comment, but on best-in-class versus all-in-one. So if anyone listening and trying to understand that, what Matt's talking about is the fact that you can buy a product that could cover all of your HR tech stack in one login, or maybe even further than that, right, into your POS and further. But the reality is, in my mind, I might be wrong, is that obviously when you're investing development time and all that kind of stuff into these products, that you're a broader brush. Whereas if you're best in class, you're kind of an expert in that field. Where do you sit on that? Because obviously you buy into the company. Is the temptation there? Because Vita can do more than POS, can't it? It does more than that. And I think, what have you got for your scheduling?
Deputy.
And again, Deputy does a bit more than just scheduling, right? So where do you sit on that? Is it a conscious decision to buy best in class?
Yeah, we've gone through different phases. So we before COVID, we had the all-in-one, especially on the people side, and we had our scheduling, HR, payroll, even F&B, all under one roof. And we moved away from that because the frustrations were growing and growing, and we did not get the response and the development and the agility and flexibility from the provider we needed. It did not evolve with our business needs, and we needed specific KPIs, specific metrics that they could not fulfill. So this is where we just ripped it off and went on the market and start to get all the best in class we could that could talk to each other. So the key here was integration, getting all those platforms to seamlessly have the data flowing between them without having to duplicate data or duplicate processes. And that's what we currently done. Vita Mojo is an interesting one you picked up on because it's doing a step back, but there's a reason behind it, because sometimes by having different systems that you have to set up separately, you just end up doing a lot of admin tasks that could be that are not necessary. And the key we're going with those guys was having a central menu and not 7 separate menus that you update on a monthly basis, and having everything fitting into one platform and so on. So there's pros and cons. One vendor also to manage, one package, no integration issues, no mapping issues. All those things are quite important when you deal with restaurants and operations. Happy Tommy.
Yeah, and we'll just play a game here. So, and if Youda was to come into Honest, I'm not trying to be naughty, but if it was, how easy, Matt, then is it to integrate with, knowing what you know about Honest, how easy it is, or how much effort does it take from the operator side? Because people are listening and thinking, okay, this sounds lovely. I'd like to have all my everything whipped up. I'd like to take away all that stuff I don't want to do anymore. But how simple is it to plug in?
If you've got the right stack, it's dead easy. You just flick an API key. It really is that easy.
Really? So like we're talking time-wise. So obviously I need to understand why I want to do it, the use case, all that kind of stuff. But once I the operator, have gone down that journey, what does the roadmap look like? God, I hate using that word. But what is
like an onboarding process?
Yes, what does
like
onboarding
it would take less than a day.
What?
Yeah, if you've got the API, the problem is if you don't have the API, like if you haven't got is it worth talking about APIs? Do you think people are going to...
Well, yes. Go on. What does it mean?
So it's an application programming interface.
Very good.
Which is good.
I'm glad I didn't have to answer that one.
So the way to imagine it, I think, is it's like a piece of plumbing between, or the end points for a piece of plumbing between two bits of software. Now, the mistake I think people make is they hear API and they think it's singular. Like you have one piece of plumbing between two systems. Actually, an API is like, imagine... data is not a spreadsheet, but imagine it was. It'd be like 2 fields on a spreadsheet. Does that make sense? Now, this is a criticism of tech providers, myself included. People go, "Oh, we're Open API," as if that means something. That just means you've got one thing that you will let people build into, but it's the range of fields that.
So I was going to say, so let's pick EPOS data with an Open API, right? So it might mean, for instance, I think you're saying that I can take my food and beverage data all the way through to my integrated system with no problem. It flows backwards and forwards, exactly the same level of data, but my average spend on each of those items might just be a singular line where I can only measure burgers.
Yeah, can I give you the one that pisses me off?
Go on,
Right, so at the HR tech space,
like you want to.
so what happens in the HR tech space is people will withhold functionality from their API as a way of keeping hold of active users. Right, so they'll allow you to set up a user on their account. They'll allow you to, read the rota, etc., etc. But they'll hold something back, like they won't tell you that person's holiday accrual. So,
that's because of a fear of kind of.
I think, if I'm honest, I think it's because people are targeted on weekly and monthly active users, and you know that if you hold on to pay slips and you hold on to holiday, people have got to log onto your system.
Yeah.
When my frustration is, I'd like people to go onto a Youda bot and say, how many days holiday have I got left? Or a manager go on and go, how many days has Jenny got left? But if they haven't got the API for that, then you can't deliver that piece of functionality.
After hearing today, Tommy, and I know you weren't in the room for there's a guy from Poly AI on the board behind you here who do voice AI, and they spoke about actually the need and the want is here now. It's a bit like the internet, right? Coming in at the start where everyone's like, oh yeah, it won't work, bloody internet. But AI is now, it's definitely changing, and we've got a need for it in Tech on Toast now, and I think everyone wants to understand it. And they were talking actually about a ceiling, saying that actually we'll reach a ceiling of what AI will do to this point, and then there'll be another step. But you want it now, right? So you want the advantageous stuff that Matt's talking about in your business.
I do, and I've got a strong idea of how it could help us. And the way I want to use AI is primarily to support our frontline workers. So there's I've got problems around Huntersburgers in terms of frustrations that I wish we could solve. One of the things we have, in my opinion, is too many group chats. So too much noise, and people are going on there to ask questions that could be easily sorted by AI, because I have all the answers somewhere on our workplace system, and there's a knowledge library. Everything is in there, but people are not going there because it takes too long to go and browse. So one of the key things with AI is to bring the answer to people on the spot. In seconds. Read all the materials, read all the troubleshooting and so on, and just bring, like Google does, 3 lines, straight to the point, no wait. And then if you can't help someone, then escalate to a human. So it doesn't end up in a dead end. There's no frustration, and if you can't fix your tech, it escalates to message Tommy, for example, and things like that.
And I think that the pressure you take off the central support system. We've only got one in the audience since he's ruining it. No, but I think the pressure it takes off the central support system is not really being considered. The advantageous stuff is normally focused on the employee, right? In terms of speed of getting information, and also compliance, becoming quite compliant quite quickly. Like you said, Matt, when they're on board, understand who they are and feed them the right information. But it's super interesting how much those questions that we're getting fielded, tax codes, are a really good example, right? So my son has asked Pizza Pilgrim's head office, I think 10 times about is tax code changing. It's nothing to do with them. They can't control it. It's all to do with HMRC, right? But for Shay to get that response, the response he wanted, he could have done that in AI in seconds and had that out of a handbook or whatever, and straight back to him, and then left that poor lady alone who's been stalked for the past 3 months. So, just that's like one simple example. But the time that you said at the start, Matt, we could give back to those central support teams to allow them to do beneficial stuff for the teams is huge.
And it's a better employee experience, because if you had to chase 10 times for someone from central support to be available or bother, getting back to them.
Sandra, her name is.
Sandra. Hi, Sandra. The fact that they didn't get an answer straight away and they got frustrated, that it's not a great employee experience. So if you can bring this answer straight to them and have that automated, Pay Captain does it, by the way. It's just everyone wins.
Yeah, and go on. So I was saying, so in your where you've got Youda operating, because I know you're working with Bao, right, in JKS. Are they seeing, how quickly do they see the benefit of that kind of thing on the time saving, particularly?
Immediately. Like, it's particularly if you focus on big ticket stuff like onboarding. I think it used to take Bao about 2.5 hours of manual work to onboard a new employee. When you add it all up,
plus human error. So.
Yeah, well, just creating accounts, putting people onto payroll, putting them onto rota. All that stuff just adds up. And now it takes about 5 minutes for the employee to complete the chatbot, and then it does all the rest. I think the other thing is, to your point, is like, it's a better employee experience, but I think if you're working in central teams, there's this constant frustration and difficulty in the type of industry that hospitality is like that last mile of getting something to someone. Like, I've worked with people teams for like a decade, and they work really hard on producing great stuff. But honestly, probably 5 to 10% actually gets through to the person who needs it at the time they needed it in a tone of voice that they wanted it to get through at. Like the actual delivery to the front line is really has historically been really poor.
And I'd like to say that I built Tech on Toast Totty, which you'll all meet soon, through Youda, and it has given. What it's done is exactly that. So we have a ton of podcasts which we've done over the years, right? And once you've listened to one, you're not really going to go back and spend 110 hours listening to the other 109, right? 110, whatever. But now you can just literally search through, literally by quote. It's insane. So in seconds, you can see what you two said on the last episode you were on, right? And find out what did Tommy say that was clever. And it's a very short answer that comes up, just 2 lines. Then Matt's is a lot longer. But do you know what I mean? So, but you can interrogate that information really in a really smart way, really quick, which is going to help people, right? The people we want to help, but you guys want to help the employees. And I think it's super interesting that we'll be able to do that. And it works, definitely.
Yeah.
It works.
The other one that's surprised me with the impact is you can make it translate. So if you put the question in French, it will come back to you in French. And actually, when you go into kitchens, that's huge. Like the ability to get.
Yeah, I was asking about the other day about language. How hard is it to change languages? And it's apparently not simple, but it's very available. And for kitchens, especially for, well, not just kitchens actually. I don't know. Is it the same across the board now? I mean, when I used to work, before Brexit, there was a whole load of nationalities working with me. But is it still the same now? Generally, have you got a big mix, especially in London?
Yeah, still. I think the only reason
French still knocking about.
Not as much.
The odd one.
No, we do have a wide range of nationalities working with us, and yeah.
How do you get around that language issue at the moment? Then, what's your current? So if you have to, if someone in the kitchen maybe it's not English isn't his first language or her first language, and they need to kind of do something, and you need them to speak quickly, is it buddying up with someone who can help them? Is that the best way to do it?
It's pretty much that.
Yeah.
I mean, some of our apps are translated into their language, which makes it easier. I often get screenshots sent to me in Portuguese and things like that. Luckily, I can read Portuguese. But apart from that, usually it's just we call out anyone in a group chat speaks Russian. We need to have a very important conversation with.
It's a really good example.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
It's a really good example of where because we're operators, we can find a way. Don't care. We'll find a way around it, whatever it takes. And we've been doing it for hundreds of years, right? There's a chef here talking before about he's been in the game 28, 30 years, and he's saying, yeah, we'll just find a way. But now you don't have to, right?
Yeah, and you've only got so many hours in the day as well, though. Like, the more things you pile on people to find a way,
Yeah. Probably not top of his priorities.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like, I think people in hospitality work pretty hard. They work pretty hard at long hours. Like, but you can only spend that 10 minutes one way or another.
And it's better for the experience as well. I guess if you're new to the country and your English is not there yet, you miss out on a lot of communication. You miss out on the culture, on the experience working for a brand. You only know what is in your kitchen or in your site, but there's so much more that gets pushed out to the employees that if it's not translated, you just can't enjoy.
On an AI footing, so Matt, best steps. Firstly, from your side, because there's a purchasing side and an operational side, but there's also an understanding why you would bother side, and we've talked about it a little bit. What are the best steps to take if someone's listening, thinking, okay? And Matt had a room full of people, right? Didn't you? Like this time last week, you had like 20 odd people in the room, all HR directors and people directors talking about this. What was the kind of wow moment for them in the room, and what is the process they should follow?
I think the first thing is AI is so big you can't ignore it. Like the impact AI is going to have on workflows is so profound and will make such a difference to the productivity of your business. You can't afford to ignore it. If you get that, so you've got to get in the game somehow. And
also because your competition, right? Because they're going to do it.
They're going to do it. So you can't ignore it. The other thing is, I think you need to see AI as being slightly different from like maybe how you've seen software in the past. AI is more like training an athlete than it is buying something. Does that make sense? Like you talk, if you want to get into the interesting stuff around personalization and prediction and data and all that, so you've got to train this model over time. And the sooner you get on that journey of training, the quicker you're going to see the benefit. But it's not like a one and done thing. Does that make sense? I'm
already understanding this, but yes.
So because lots of the value of it is coming from training a model, like you've got to get it in and you've got to start working with it and train. It's more like an augmentation piece than it is a product that just sits there and does something.
You're not buying off the shelf, are you? In terms of
you can buy off the shelf, but the value is going to accumulate as you generate more data, and then you start to run tests through it and that sort of thing. So I think it's like people have got to get on board next year. Like 2025 is going to be there is enough low-hanging fruit that you can get from this that the market's going to move and people are going to start using it much more significantly. And I think if you don't get on soon, you're going to be left behind. And the biggest problem is not what you buy the new thing, it's what you've already got in your legacy tech. Because if you've got systems that don't have a good API, that won't give up their data, you're really going to be limited about the value you can extract from AI. And so that's the bit you've really got to have a think about what you've got already and what you might need to switch out in order to.
And that's huge, right? Because I don't think not everyone's got a Tommy, right? And if you know what I mean, not everyone's got a Tommy in their team.
Everyone needs a Tommy.
Everyone needs a Tommy. Well, you say that. You're only one man. But maybe you should get a bot. Everyone, but they don't have that ability, right? So when they are buying or when they're dealing with legacy tech, it's hard, right? Some of the questions in the audience they ask in OpenTable about some of the features they have are really granular stuff, right? About their day-to-day. One guy was saying, on my desktop I can do this, but I can't do it on my phone.
You do need
that real frustration level, and I felt his pain. I was like,
you really do need a Tommy.
Yeah, and they're big picture stuff, right? The big guys down. Yeah. So it's interesting.
I'm a little bit skeptical about building your own technology. But I do think you need someone internally who understands your business, understands your users, can understand what your strategy is and where you want to win and where you're just looking to compete. Because otherwise, I think the tech landscape's just too confusing. Yeah. It's very difficult to tell a good provider from a not good provider if you don't have that sort of person like in the middle of the Venn diagram between understanding your operation and understanding the tech.
And this is unique because that's what we do on a larger scale, I suppose, without doing the detail that Tommy would do. Like we sit there in the middle and kind of have all this stuff floating around us and just educate. But for Tommy, in your day-to-day role, and you help clients externally, your role is to explain exactly what you do, because we talked about the AI, why you should buy and what you should do with it. But actually, when you do have something and that project, and I saw a presentation you're doing tomorrow, and I had a sneaky peek at it, and I saw you had that lovely sheet in there that kind of showed how you kind of kick people out there. You've got like 10 suppliers at the start.
My requirement sheet.
What's it called? Your requirement sheet?
My requirement sheet.
It's very good. Like that's the requirement room in Harry Potter. But anyway, there's so basically it shrinks as it goes down, right? As you vet out these people that should be in there. So give us a bit more information on that, because if people don't have you and can't afford you or whatever, right? And they're a single site. What's the best way for them to approach this kind of situation? Because they can have AI, right? Anyone can have it.
You were about to say something?
I was going to say, I do think there's a point at which it's like, when you're small, you don't need to over-engineer your business. You talked about single site. Like, I wouldn't worry about it if you're single. Like, until you're like
3.
From a people perspective, honestly, until you've got 100, 150 odd people, until you're pushing towards 10 sites, I don't think you need to worry about it. If in that sort of founder-led pocket, when you're small, founders know everything that's going on in the heads of the people who work with them. They turn up at their restaurants. They know everyone's name. They know, whose sister's unwell, whose mum's they know everything, and they influence the decision-making, the behavior of the business just on their own personal influence as a founder. And that, in my opinion, is exactly as it should be. It's all about grooming behavior in monkeys and apes. Anyway. There's science behind this. But yes, the serious point is you get to a level of social complexity in your business where you can't manage it on personal influence. That's the point at which you need to start thinking about systems. But if you put it in too early, in my opinion, you actually ruin your business because you take the
dehumanizing.
You lose the magic of
the. You don't have time anyway. I think that's why smaller businesses start with the all-in-one.
So ignore small businesses. So kind of the mid-market businesses listen to this. Who've got the issues you've got, right? Have got the challenges you're facing. How are they dealing with it?
You have to allocate someone to take on that project. Unfortunately, if you're not going to go externally, reach out to Tech on Toast or reach out to a consultant, to Tommy Tech. You're going to have to allocate someone. And if you are going to go down that road, I strongly advise to get someone from ops in charge, not someone from finance. Because they will start with the commercials, where the commercials is really the last part of the puzzle. And if you start with ops, you understand already what are the pain points, what the problem you're trying to solve, and then you go on the market to try to fix that problem.
And you're going to ask very different questions as an operator as opposed to a CFO, right? To these tech providers, you're not going to ask them. You're not going to start talking about scaling and growth and all. You're going to start talking about, hang on, the granular stuff this chat was asking about today. Will it work on a mobile on a Tuesday afternoon when we're, whatever? That's the kind of questions you ask.
What's the user experience, and who's the end user? If it's going to be, the people working in the restaurants, they should be part of the conversation in the first place as well. You should have a few people that are involved and give their point of view, because they're the ones that are going to be dealing with the tech on a daily basis. If it's not good enough, it's never going to land.
Perfect.
It's a waste of money.
Very good. Look, and I will finish off finally. Final thoughts, Matthew?
Final thoughts on what? Just
do you
want
to do the gorilla and ape or not? No, we're not doing that. Whatever it was. No, but so on you mentioned AI next year is going to be huge. In fact, if you're not involved, what are you going to do? Is there anything coming in terms of change? I mentioned voice AI before and the use cases for that, like the OpenTable using it. Really interesting. They played a 1-minute clip over his microphone today on stage, and it was a bot talking to a customer. And if they hadn't have told us that was it, you wouldn't have known. The voice was, like you said, it was copying really nicely. It sounded like a normal person on the phone. So yeah, what's coming, do you think?
I think we'll see a wave of useful LLM applications next year. So all the things we've talked about, trying to keep this brief as possible. What surprised everyone? What has surprised everyone in the AI space is how useful an LLM is and how much you can do with it. And I think over the next 12 months you're going to see a wave of applications come through.
What
the caveat to
LLM is, please?
An LLM is a large language model. It's basically a prediction engine. So it's trying to predict the next token in the sequence, so the next word in the sentence. So like if I say the cat in the
hat,
perfect. You're as bright as ChatGPT. Well done. But you can use LLMs for for all sorts of language-based stuff. The next realization is that LLMs still don't have a theory of reality. They're still not great at pursuing like logic and that sort of thing. Yeah. So actually, the more interesting, the bit we're really excited about at Youda is, can you get an LLM to talk to what's called a causal inference model? So a different application of machine learning. And so what we're trying to drive towards is the point at which you can essentially, as a people director, sit down and have a conversation with your data. You say, hey, Youda, tell me what's driving my 90-day turnover. And Youda will come back and say, it looks like, if you don't give people 2 days off in a row, or if people are joining an unstable team or whatever it is, these are the things that are driving your outcome. So there'll be a lot of useful stuff coming from LLMs next year, and also I think a greater appreciation of the things they can't do yet until you combine them with other bits of AI.
Thank you, Matt. That was quite succinct for you. And what about you, Tommy? Obviously, you've got your obviously EPOS is done. What's next for you in terms of what you're doing at Honest? Obviously, you mentioned AI. How close are we to seeing that in Honest Burger?
People engagement will be launched early Q1. So that's my next big project, alongside a few things around loyalty, payout table, and we've got an exciting new concept, hopefully launching before Christmas.
Oh, yes. Is this the
Smashed?
Yes, Smashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. Where's your first site?
I'm not sure we can say. Yeah, it will be near Liverpool Street.
Is it in London?
Yeah, it's in London.
That'll
do.
Right, okay. All right, very cool. And if people want to get hold of you, Tommy, how can they speak to you? Because they might, if you run these
LinkedIn
side gigs
or
you can do for people, help them
yeah.
out. You want your own Tommy, you can rent him out.
Yeah, LinkedIn will do. Yeah,
LinkedIn. Okay, fine. And Matt, for Youda, how do we get hold of you guys?
Youda.co, or find me on LinkedIn.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the OpenTable stage. They've all gone.
Thanks, Chris.
And now it's time for us to go for a beer. Thank you.